cyber attacks are becoming very serious, and they're an example of how just one person can produce a really major disruption by disrupting electric power grids and things like that. And this is a new kind of warfare if nations engage in it, but even an individual could cause pretty serious damage. And similarly with bio threats, the new techniques, for instance, to make the influenza virus more virulent and more transmissible. These have been developed a few years ago, and in 2014 the American federal government stopped funding research into these because it was thought to be dangerous knowledge and a risk of the viruses escaping, etc. So that's an example where there's a new technique. And of course we've got the wonderful new gene editing techniques, CRISPR-Cas9, which has huge benefits, but also could have unintended consequences if so-called gene drive is used to make species extinct, and that has runaway consequences. So there's a big risk of these things. Now, quite rightly, there are lots of discussions within scientific academies and elsewhere about how to regulate these new technologies, particularly bio, modelled on a famous conference in Asilomar 40 years ago in the early days of recombinant DNA, when the researchers agreed to a moratorium and to follow certain guidelines. And in that spirit, there have been in the last 2 or 3 years similar gatherings of academicians and experts. But things are different this time. They're different because far more nations are involved, it's far more widespread, and also there's much stronger commercial pressure, which there wasn't 40 years ago. There was no biotech industry. And for that reason, I think whatever guidelines we have and feel should be adopted on prudential or ethical grounds, enforcing them is going to be very hard. I would say it's going to be as hopeless to enforce them globally as it is to enforce the drug laws or the tax laws. And we've had precious little success in enforcing either of those. And this I find very scary. And the point is that the equipment that is needed is very modest. I mean, cyber attacks just need access to the internet, and the techniques needed for some of these gene modification techniques is available in university labs and industry, etc. It's not like nuclear, where you can't build a nuclear weapon in your garage, but it's got to be conspicuous, and therefore it's feasible to have inspection and monitoring of nuclear developments. Okay, we can't do that in these cases, and so my worry is that whatever can be done in the bio and cyber area will be done somewhere by someone, and I don't know what we can do to eliminate that risk. We can certainly try and reduce it, and I think we should focus very hard on ways to reduce it, to have surveillance, etc. Although there again, there's going to be a tension between security, freedom and privacy, if we want to try and guard against individual lone wolves, as it were, misusing this technology. But I think it's something we do need to worry about, and that's even on a timescale of just 10 or 20 years, what worries me most.